And we're back. Hope to see you guys. Hope to see you guys back up on here. I know a second ago we were talking about all the good things, and then my girl, Nicole, wasn't able to get on. So we got Casey in the house. We got Wounded Healer coming back in. So excited. Miss Casey, happy birthday to you. Love you. If you don't know what's happening, it's happening. I can see it. It's happening. Connecting. Yes!
There we go. Yay!
Incoming. Oh my gosh, so good to see your face.
Good to see you too. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, girl. Gosh, I was just kind of teeing people up, Sometimes technology can be the way it is, but you know what? We got this.
Yes, ma'am.
But I was teeing people up about, what we're going to talk about, just boundaries in general and kind of what that looks like and how to create them, welcome. This is Nicole, just so everyone knows. What's up, K-Del? Adam again. This is Nicole. We had a conversation last week. We were talking about mental health. We were talking about vision. We were talking about all the things, right, that really just is empowering. It was really empowerment more than anything. And we ended with, just wanting to do this again and also wanting to talk about boundaries because it's so freaking important, right?
Yes.
Like how many times, I know I did in the past, I would think, I'm too nice. I'm just going to shut myself down and be, rude or be distant or don't give too much attention. But instead it's how about you get to be the best version of yourself and create a boundary, right?
Right, and boundaries are so often it's creating balance is what I'm hearing you say. And so a big part of what I'm still learning, and I think, a lot of the people that I'm working with are also still learning is what do boundaries look like for me? Where, do I overextend in my life? When am I in situations with people where I pull back, right? And what is that about? What is it about me that hides? And I think with a boundary, a lot of times I didn't even know that I had needs. I didn't even know that I needed to set a boundary with my energy, for example, or being the friend who listened too much. That's a really common pattern in my life. And so not recognizing that I was in relationships with people that weren't being reciprocated. So I had no boundaries. There's zero at that point. It's all about them, and it's, about me maybe this much.
What do you think that, because it is important to be in, when we're in relationship to have the flow of the conversation, right? The give and take, you give me some energy, I give you some energy, right? Maybe there's days in a relationship where I give you a little more just because you need it.
And that's okay too, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. But I'm interested in hearing what those relationships were like for you, how you got to realizing what I just said, that okay, these relationships aren't serving me and these ones do. How did you kind of come to that pivotal point?
Well, I started to discern it. I mean, I actually was kind of forced into it because I was in a domestic violence relationship. Mm-hmm. And from that experience, I pretty much, was trying to set boundaries with him, and he would just run over it, right? Anytime that I attempted to stand up for myself, that's actually when the abuse would really amplify.
Yeah.
Which was really hard, being someone who already prior to this relationship, had a history of being more passive, right? And so for me to stand up for myself, it already took a lot, and then he'd shut it down. And that's where I really came to realize oh my God, boundaries are there to protect me, mm-hmm. right? And if I don't have those, people can hurt me, literally, physically, emotionally, in all these kinds of ways. And so I had to come a really long way. And once I started to do that, that's when I started to realize, oh, wait, this is happening not just in this relationship, right? This is happening in other relationships as well, maybe to a different degree. But such a big piece of it was that I just didn't even have a set of boundaries or limits or expectations from people. It was just oh, anything you'll give me and I'll take it.
Thank you for sharing that. Gosh, that sounds like a really really rough way to learn boundaries, for one.
Yeah.
Right? Totally,
Not
right?
the best.
Not
Right.
the funnest, but I mean, that's like almost like a straight like rocket ship to like, being able to discern like, okay, like it's just, whew, I can't imagine. Thank you for sharing that. What's up, James? Seeing you guys on. Thank you for coming back in. Um, so interesting. What was coming up for me when you were talking about that is, like, when we set boundaries, it's uncomfortable, right? Because sometimes we have these people pleasers in us, right? And what I know to be true about how, yeah, covering people pleaser, right? What I know to be true about like me, for instance, what I was hearing within your story, very similar, is it's like, it's very uncomfortable. So it's like, I want to create a boundary and I want it to feel good too. And I want it to, I want them to be happy too. But it's like, what if that's not how it's supposed to go? And what if that would be cushioning their fall as well? What if
Right.
you realizing I need a boundary is actually part of your journey and their journey and your lesson and their lesson. And like, we're all just teaching each other lessons, being the teacher and the student at any given moment. And
Right.
instead of having that story that I'm going to hurt their feelings, maybe this is going to help them. And it's going to create worthiness within me as well.
Correct. And it's also showing them, and that's such a big part of what I learned as a therapist, right? I had to set the boundary of like, there's folks who maybe would show up late every session or, would constantly, cancel at the last minute. And that's where my people pleasing, it really, as a therapist, that's why so much of it is self-analysis. As a therapist, it was like, oh my God, I have to tell people no. I have to tell people this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And they might not like it. They might not even come back. They might, that might be it, is me setting this boundary, because no one in their life has ever done that. No one's ever said this isn't okay. And so it's very uncomfortable.
You're setting the tone for them too. Like, it's interesting. You're their therapist and you're teaching them and giving the permission for them to set a boundary. Like, what a win-win, right?
Right.
But in
Right.
general, like,
but that reframe of, if I don't do this, then I'm actually harming them, right? I'm not helping them. I'm enabling them. If I just keep letting you come late every single week, right, and never say anything, then what's the standard that I'm setting, right? What's the status quo for them in relationships? Because my job as a clinician is to teach you how to show up in relationships. It's
wow.
to have some degree of that. And if I'm not displaying the boundary myself, and it took a long time to get to that.
And that's perfect though too. Like, it's perfect that it took a long time, or whatever your view of long time is, right? Like, that's all, everything's relative, like maybe the long time for you is not much, for me it's like the perfect time. But in general, like, you got there and you started messy, and you were like, I have to start somewhere, and a lot of times I noticed back in the day, for me, I would be like, if it doesn't look the way I want it to look and the outcome's not going to be the way I want it to be, then I'm just not going to do it at all. And it's like, you got to start somewhere, and that's not going to get you anywhere, because the lessons are still going to come up for you to be able to set a boundary, right? And one thing that came to me is when you were saying, maybe they won't come back. It's like, you are a clinician. Yes. And then when you look back at the deeper picture, it's like, you're also sourcing the people that are ready for you,
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, on a more spiritual level. So it's like, do what you got to do. Don't be attached to the end result.
Yeah.
Like, if someone stays or if someone leaves,
That's their thing.
Yeah. You want to be of service, and you want the people that are ready to be held, to be supported, to come back.
And I have an open door policy, and I say that to folks. It's like, if you're not ready now, that's okay. And that's usually the approach that I go with. It's not like, oh, you're a piece of shit because you're always late. You're fucking up. I excuse my French. I cuss too much.
It's okay. We live in a world where people cuss.
But it's so important for me to be gentle even when I'm setting the boundary, right? And so that I know that I've done the best I can in assertively communicating, this is my boundary, right? You're supposed to be here at 11:30, and you're showing up at 12 every week. This is my boundary, this is my time, and this is your time, really. And so maybe you're not ready for that commitment.
How would you handle rebuttal? Because I know that there are people even on here right now that do have, and welcome to the people that are showing up right now. Thank you so much for coming in. It's like they'll take that committed action of like, okay, I'm going to set a boundary, but then maybe they get some intensity back. Like, how do you handle that without getting to their level or reacting, you know? How do you do
Right.
that?
Well, again, it goes back to the story that I tell myself, which is I'm not responsible for other people's reactions.
Mm.
All I'm responsible for is communicating in a kind, gentle, assertive, honest way. And then, you know, the way that you respond to that is up to you. It's your response. And so a lot of times I think of it from the lens of like they're projecting. You know, if someone starts, I learned this working at the grocery store. It was such an amazing experience for me when this man threw milk at me because he didn't have enough money for the milk. He like threw it across the register and it flew all over me. And I realized in that moment, I was like 20 years old. I was like, oh, what's going on in this guy's life that he's throwing milk at me? Like, that's not about me at all. Like, this isn't my responsibility to carry. Like, this is his reaction to the price of milk that I don't even have control of.
Right. Yeah. Powerful realization at 20, by the way. Powerful realization. It seems to be that like the generation or the newer generations are really being like, their eyes are opening on a more spiritual level. And, you know, anyways, awesome realization at 20. And so true, right? Like if it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. It's not personal to Nicole. It's not like I can't wait to get up and meet Nicole at Bonds or whatever great grocery store we worked at and like just throw a day off, you know what I mean? And just make her life a living hell. But it can happen. And that's the thing, like regardless, like I don't even think it's always about like just ever not getting triggered, but it's just about like knowing that when things happen, it's an opportunity to, one, understand yourself and really get present in the moment and respond instead of react, feel where it's coming from. Am I being a people pleaser? Yes. Why do I want them to like me? Do I really want this person in my life? Like, at what cost am I like continuously spending time with this person? You know, if we're doing the example of maybe a person in your life that's toxic, you know, and my partner ended up giving a really great example. I mean, he just was speaking live the other day, but he was talking about like people, like when you meet them, they always start at the 0 scale, like neutral, 0, cool. But then you either, when they're contributing positively to your life, what's up, Jeff? When they're contributing positively to your life, they start to go up like +1, +2, +3, and maybe they get into, you know, something in their life where they get depressed or, you know, they're going through some things and they go -1, but it's not like you're still there for them. Maybe they go down to 0. Okay. Maybe they go down to like the negative side, you know, but like, it's just a part of like their experience. You want to be there for them. But then there's times where people are just constantly going down and down and down and down. And you've really got to gauge like yourself. Like it's one thing, and this is really me speaking for myself, but it's one thing to really understand where people are coming from. Like, I understand why you're like that. I understand where you're coming from. I understand that it's painful. And then there's a point of being like, and like, it's draining me. And I love you, but I'm going to let you go right now. You know, I've supported you to the best of my ability. I've held space for you. I've given you resources for maybe whatever you're going through. And it seems like you don't want to shift. And at this point, I do have a lot of responsibility to the people that I allow into my life, to the job that I have, to the vision that I have in my life. And that's important. And I'm not saying goodbye. It's like the open door policy. My door is open when you're ready to really step into your power in your life and really like know that you are the one in control of shifting your life. So just to kind of wrap that back around, like it's okay to let people go. I've let my family go, you know, who I love, and I still talk to them, but not at the level of like vulnerability.
Right. It's like we move them out of our circle a little bit. They're not in that intimate circle anymore. That's a lot of what boundaries also kind of look like, right? It's like, are they going to be in the close circle? Are they going to be, you know, out here? And sometimes the family members are not here in the close circle because they're not safe. And a big part of what actually helped me kind of wake up to my boundaries also was when my best friend said to me, Nicole, you know, when I was in my domestic violence relationship, she was like, Nicole, I have children. And this guy is so dangerous that until you're done with him, I can't communicate with you. I can't have you in my space because I have to protect myself and my family. And that was one of them. And then the second one was when I went to my parents' house and they were like, you can't come here if you're under the influence. Like, you can't stay the night here. And it was the first time in my life where they'd said no to me, where they set a boundary. So it's also the response to the boundary. I may have had a big response, but it ended up eventually being what made me come to the awareness that what I was doing was toxic.
Yeah.
That I was, that there was a piece of me that was toxic, right? Because I wasn't being
Yeah.
safe.
I love what you said. I love that you also put yourself in the position of being the one that somebody needed to say, hey, Nicole, I love you and it's not working for me. I've been there too. And you and I are both in recovery, right? So like we've both had those awarenesses and those revelations of like, wow. But the beautiful thing, and you touched base on it, is that you came to an awareness. Like if people continued to let you do what you were doing and didn't show you your gap, because you couldn't see it, like you knew your life wasn't that great. I knew my life wasn't that great. I didn't really see like what wasn't working though. I just thought maybe if I tried a different avenue, maybe if I tried a different approach, maybe if a new day came, maybe if I slept a little differently, maybe if I tried on a different makeup, who knows, right? All these different things. But like the real thing was like the way I was showing up in life. And like somebody said to you, it's not working. Had you not have known that, maybe you didn't move and change the first time. Okay. And the seed was planted. The seed was planted. So when it was time and you were like, wow, you look back in your timeline and you're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, fuck, it's true, right? And so look where you are today. You're supporting other people. You're a clinician. You're like, because of all these people who chose to step forward and be uncomfortable and have the uncomfortable conversation with you of, Nicole, I love you, and this is not who you are, and also I can't have you in my life because of it. You are a different woman today. So for any of us like on here right now that are maybe in a situation where they feel they need to really have a powerful conversation with somebody, or somebody's had a powerful conversation with you and you don't want to believe it, that's okay. That's okay. But just know that everyone's a mirror of you, and we're all really just reflecting back how you're showing up, at any given moment of any day. Like my partner will reflect to me like, ooh, like something I'm like not stoked about. Or there's moments where I'm like, oh, okay. Like I love his response, like that's because I'm like, he's vibing with me, but it's not hard to be like, what's wrong? It's like, well, the reaction or the response to somebody that I've been spending a lot of time with is like not great. I get to check in with myself and see, hey, is there something that I could maybe shift? Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Our partners are usually our best mirror. I think in a lot of ways because we spend the most time with them. And so that shadow self that, I always think about the Native American. I think I've said that to you before. There's the tale of the two wolves, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times with my partner, I notice that I tend to, because of my history with domestic violence, that I tend to get into survival mode. And so that's the wolf that's coming up is my survival mode, right? And he's not very nice. And so, but when that's reflected back to me, then I can look at it and see like where the dysfunction is, like that disalignment with who I'm trying to be.
You just said something that triggered something for me, and trigger in a great way. You said he's not very nice, meaning like your other wolf, right? That's important, and if you're open, I'd love for you to touch base on that because oftentimes we're in that spiritual arena, right? We step into that and it's like, okay, like you can either be in the delusion of life and think everything's good and like accept like minimal just playing small, or you can step into the spiritual arena, and that's what we've done, but it sounds like there's moments still where you are humbled and it's uncomfortable.
Oh, all the time.
So, right?
It's still happening constantly. And it's when I say it's not nice, it's like, it's not compassionate. It's not being a partner. I'm not even, I'm trying to, what my boyfriend does a lot that's really helpful is he refers to it like sports. Like we're on the same team.
Mine does too. We're a team. Oh,
We're a team. Like we're not against each other, you know? And that's when
yeah.
I'm realizing like, whoa, I'm turning against him. Like I'm not
Mm,
turning towards him.
wow. Those simple words really do help, like get like shift, right? But I wanted to ask you, like, because that can be hard. Like I noticed in me when that happens, when my little gremlin, I call it a gremlin, comes out, the shame and guilt kicks up, and then it's like a spiral,
Yeah.
and it's not about like it's not about the situation, it's about the forgiveness of self. Like that's
Yes.
what keeps my spiral, is because I'm not forgiving myself for having a
Yes.
moment. And instead of it being a moment, it becomes a fucking hour of something, and then it becomes a novel, then it becomes a whole day. And I haven't let something really get that way in a while, except last week, and there's just been a lot of changes. Woof. Anyways, which is great, right? Today's a bitchin' day. It's like you'll go through those like blah moments when you're like, ah. But anyways, forgiveness of self, like that is so freaking important, right? And I just wanted to hear what you have to say about that in the moments where you're not so stoked on the way you're showing up. Like, how do you shift and allow yourself to just be human?
It's fascinating. It's interesting that you bring this up because this was the topic of conversation that I was having with someone yesterday was about self-forgiveness because um, I recently started driving again, and it's been 2 years that I haven't been driving. And the reason is because a lot of the domestic violence that I went through was within the car. And so I've had to do a lot of work
Wow.
on myself to not have panic attacks and anxiety when I'm driving, keep everybody safe. But now I'm finally to the point where, you know, I'm practicing it. But what's happening is I'm having more flashbacks from the past. And I have to have more dialogue about forgiving myself for the things, you know, that I'm remembering or that are kind of intruding into my mind because so much of it is so shameful, right? So much of it you can get wrapped into that shame. And so I yesterday I was driving and I had a flashback and I pulled over and afterwards I started to have that conversation with myself, which was I forgive myself, right? I forgive myself for being in this situation. You're safe now. I will protect you. I will keep you safe. Like it's literally having this conversation with my inner child, but such a big part of it is I forgive myself, right? I know better now. I will protect myself now. And so it's just, I had to completely reframe it. But it literally, I mean, it has to come from that core of I'm not a bad person because I made bad choices, right?
I
I
love that.
deserve to love myself, right? To honor that I am human and that part of my journey included, you know, doing some harm that I would prefer not to admit to or acknowledge, but I have to so that I don't continue down that path.
Mhm.
But it's painful.
Yeah.
But the way to get out of the pain is to forgive
Hmm.
yourself for not knowing what you know now or for coping just the best way that you knew how at that time, but it's different now, right? And even
Yeah.
if I were to slip up now, how much resources and how much do I have that I've built? It doesn't all just go away, right? Even if I curse at my boyfriend, it doesn't mean that all that work just goes away. I have to forgive myself. Like, oh, there you go. You made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. That's shame, right? The difference between shame and guilt is guilt is I did a bad thing. Shame is I am bad.
Mm. I just listened to Brene Brown. Is that
Right?
kind of what you're
That's
referring
her.
to?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just left Phoenix last week, and I decided to sever the ties between my parents, and I no longer accepting the way that I've been treated. Um, and I turned on Brene Brown, and it was, you know, if any of you know Brene studies emotions, um, studies
Shame.
feelings. Yeah, she's
Mm-hmm.
a shame studier, which is so interesting. And that was the thing that actually landed for me. And that was the first time I'd heard it in one of her. I mean, I've heard her for so long, but I just hadn't heard that. So it was definitely, it helped. It's like, yeah, yeah. Shame is like, there's like no use for it. It's just so lower vibration. It's not even cool. But thank you for sharing all
Yes.
that. You know, it's the whole, what is human, you know? That's how I can forgive myself. I came to a definition, I came to an understanding of what human is to me. And to me, when I look back in my timeline, the years of whatever, like it's a wild ride, just like you. Like it's so wild. I'm just like, how am I here? Like, oh my God. I'll drive around San Diego sometimes and I remember the spots that I'm just like, I don't know how I made it out, like, of those moments, you know? But I did. And when I look back in my life, I'm like, that's what human is, you know? Everyone's is different, but our experiences are what human is, because we always have choices, two choices. We could either trust and have faith in something bigger than ourselves, or we could try to be running the show, right? When I run the show's fucked up. Your part is like everyone, I give you like all characters to play, and like it's just a shit show, you know? I'd love to think that it would be different, but I don't. It's a relief to know that like I don't have to make my own decisions in regards to like what's happening here. I just get to do the right thing. I get to trust my gut. I get to speak my truth. I get to use my intuition, right? I get to just be asked to be used as a conduit for God, for source, for spirit, for universe, whatever it is that we call, you know, higher power. That's all our job is. Our job is just to like be human, have a human experience as a spirit, and just do the right thing every minute of the day. Like that's it. Like, and some days our days look worse than others, but we did our best. Like if you did your best that you could within the experience that you're currently having, like any given moment of every day, that's all that matters, you know? And you're aware, you have that wherewithal to be like, oof, I remember that interaction with Nicole. Like, I don't think I came off in a really kind way. I get to call her. I get to have a vulnerable conversation, and I get to not make it about me, and I get to apologize and hear what she has to say, because it matters. And every action that you take affects another person, even if you think it's big or small, you know? It's so important, you know? Wow,
and recognizing, you know, what you do and don't have control of, right? It's that constant reminder of, you know, I only have so much control of even myself. Like, and I definitely don't have control over other people, but I have control over the impact that I make on them.
Yeah. The impact,
right? Which again, it's being my highest self, the best version of me that I can be. What, you know, and for what, you know, I believe that such a big piece of that is out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who I'm gonna face each day, what interaction I'm gonna have, and so I have to just, you know, do what I've learned throughout this lifetime, you know, to keep myself at my best self. Which, you know, for me, I'm someone who studies emotions. I had studied emotional intelligence because I realized, I think kind of quick on, that I needed to learn it. Because I'm a very emotional being, right? I have a high sensitivity to emotions. And so I needed to, you know, as far back as I can remember, when I started to read, I was reading about things that taught me about like self-help and how to, I don't know, I was connected to like trauma, which is really interesting to me at a very young age. And reading people's stories and like their emotional experiences and realizing and connecting to it, you know, because I'm that.
I love that.
And so I had to learn what that meant, which, you know, there's so much depth to our emotional and spiritual experience. And I think it's really interesting that with substance abuse, I've heard it from so many folks that the spiritual piece is like what is getting neglected.
It is. It is. I mean, it's not even just with, like if you're touching base on substance abuse, for sure. But
right.
Like it's interesting. Like, and it's so easy in our culture to be like, oh, like those are the people that have the problems. Those are the people that go to AA, NA, or that they go to recovery, or that go to rehab. Like those are the people that have the problems. It's like, no, like that's just what, like I ended up finding alcohol and drugs and like to like numb myself. But like, don't be confused. People are numbing themselves everywhere with different things.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with cleaning your house like crazy and not even like taking the step back to be with yourself, or whether it's always going somewhere and like never being with you, or whether it's eating too much and like finding comfort in something that's not going to tell you no and just eat that pizza that doesn't say don't eat me. It's like eat me, you know, or money, spending because you don't feel good enough within that you want to get all these things. So like, you know, like we just found something that is really, you know, looked at as bad, but like avoidance period, like is avoidance. The avoidance to me, like addiction is avoidance. Addiction is avoidance. You're avoiding yourself. You're avoiding your feelings. That's what we're uncomfortable with. We're uncomfortable with our feelings. And so at some point, somewhere in our lives, people told us, somebody told us, or we believed, or we created a story that whatever feelings we feel aren't okay unless they make somebody happy, unless they make somebody smile, unless, you know, somebody wants to be around you. But like at what cost? Your authenticity, you know? Even if you don't know what that is, you know you don't like something. Like when we're younger, we don't really know, I'm going to be this, or, you know, I'm this passionate woman who loves to paint, and you don't really know, and maybe you do. Maybe you've known the whole time. You just, you know, our life is about like exploring as we go, but trusting ourselves along the way. And at some point, if we learn to not trust ourselves, that's a fucking dreary road for a while. And some of us get out, some of us don't. I was thinking about that this morning when I was brushing my teeth, like thinking about you too. And like, we got out. We got out of the game.
Yeah.
You know? And some people don't. And that sucks.
And it's so sad, you know, it's so unfortunate, right? Because there are some beautiful, beautiful people that are stuck in this cycle, and you know, there's this, you know, the cognitive dissonance. I get it because I was in a domestic violence relationship, and what that means is like my logic, right? It's not linked, right? I am not in alignment with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rationalization that, you know, kind of comes into play with avoiding your feelings, it's so incredibly painful to even be in that mindset, because how are you seeing the world to justify avoiding your feelings, right? Like, what have you had to do in your psyche to convince yourself that it's okay for you to go and, you know, shoot up meth? Like, what's the story that you have to tell yourself for that to be okay?
And yeah, and knowing that
it's not a pretty story.
It's not a pretty
It's not
story.
everybody loves me. It's not I'm a, you know.
It's sad. And the one thing I know too to be true is that it's also okay. Like not the stories we create, not the drug use, but there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. You know, it just is like acknowledging that this isn't working. Like I'm not living a life that I really love. I'm not really happy with myself. And that's fucking okay. It's okay to not be happy. Like there's something I'm missing. I'm not saying something, and I need help. And asking for help is really hard. So hard because like I know for me, I created a story that asking for help meant that I failed as a human. I'd failed in this experience that like if I need somebody else to support me in being a human, I just deem myself defective. And that couldn't be further from the truth, which is so crazy. It's so mind-blowing that it's actually the opposite. That this whole life is about relationships and connection. It's mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. But you know, it's all good. It's all good. And that just goes back to acceptance, being okay with like being human and making mistakes and doing and saying things that really are not the best. I've said, I've done, I've experienced some really effed up things, and I'm not proud, but I'm grateful. So grateful. I have a story that is mind-blowing to myself. Like I look at that girl and I'm like, what the fuck? I just can't believe you did that, you know? But I can, and I love you. I love you because you didn't know. And I talk to myself like that. I'll talk to myself in the mirror, you know? I have moments of like where we just have, like yesterday, I put a song on that's really empowering, and I just looked in the mirror at myself, and I was like dancing and like raising my hands, and like I needed to, because there's those moments where like the old self wants to slip back in and be like, remember? And it's like, I do remember. And this girl, this woman is powerful as fuck because of that girl's
Right.
ignorance, quite frankly, but like that's why I'm so powerful, and appreciation of self, forgiveness of self, and just like, yeah, it's so important to be okay with the things that society says are not okay, because society is like, whatever. Society is an interesting thing. Like it's a thing, but when you break it down into individual people, almost every single one of them, every person is dealing with something that like society says isn't okay, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's such an interesting concept. Like it's an interesting concept. So
Well, it's a way to keep us all, I think, oppressed, right? And so we all feel like shit about ourselves because there's always something wrong, right? There's something, especially, I mean, I can just speak from being a woman, right? There's always something physically that isn't good enough, right? There's all,
mm,
and it's, and even just like the identity piece of it too is what I was thinking, like the different hats that we have to constantly be
yeah.
wearing, like these
Mhm.
different images that we feel we need, or masks, I think, that we feel we need to portray
No
because,
pun intended.
right? But it's such a big part of it is to just be accepted, because
Mhm.
that's all that we all really like you'd articulated, it's all about connection. It's all
Mhm.
about relationships. I mean, we're social beings.
Yeah. So interesting when you were talking about earlier about like um you never know what's going to happen throughout the day or who you're going to encounter. And I was thinking, God, I love that part now. And I used to hate it. And I'm like, like what's going to happen? It's that control. Like that was me needing to
Hmm.
control though, right? And not just accepting, but like it for me, I really had to understand and step into my power, so I didn't give it away, because that was the reason why I was so wanting to control the outcomes and control the day to days, because I didn't know my power, and it was about like my self worth was about how people reacted to me,
Yeah.
smiled at me, said I was this, said I was that in a nice way,
Hmm.
right? So that's why I wanted to control the environment, because I was only looking for those validations and not wanting to accept anything worse because of how powerfully they can affect me, right? So I was avoiding the
Right.
feelings of possibly giving my power away, not realizing that's what I was doing, giving my power away to somebody when they weren't, XYZ. But then understanding my power, which took me to go, I went to an emotional intelligence course, and I started to do a lot of self help, and then got sober as well, things like that. But understanding my power, having a vision for what I want in my life, you know, and then running everything I say, do, and feel through that vision filter, you know. And if something wasn't aligned, it was out. If something's aligned, it's in. And then also, like when it comes to interactions with people, it's like I see things now, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching right now feel the same way. And maybe Nicole, you do as well. And hi to all of you that are jumping on. Um, I see interactions as opportunities, people as opportunities. Like it's easy to look at them, like I look at things in like multiple layers, but in this particular example, two layers, like the reality that we're living in, and then the more like bigger picture of like a spiritual outlook. So when I'm in an interaction with somebody and maybe it's not so fun, I'm like, what opportunity is this? What have I been? What pattern has been happening in my life that's been really uncomfortable? That
Mhm.
this person, that the universe gave me this person in this moment so that I could respond instead of react, thus completing the lesson and moving on, right? That's how I
Right.
see it. That's how it
Traumatic
serves me.
experience. Exactly.
Totally,
Absolutely.
totally, totally.
Absolutely. And when I
So,
started to look at it that way, it became so
yeah,
much easier to deal
yeah,
with, like
totally.
you said earlier, like not trying to manage people's reactions.
Yeah, so much easier. And it's fun. And yeah, some experiences you're like, whoa, I could have done without that one. But for the most part, everyone's just at any point the teacher, or at any point the student, right? At any
Yeah.
point, I can be the teacher and the student in the same with the same conversation with the person, the teacher, the student. And what I know to be true is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that's something that Buddha said. But I love that because it's so true. And it's like, instead of being like, why me? It's like, thank you. Thank you for this
Thank you.
experience, because what's
Hmm.
about to happen is I am fucking getting rid of this pattern. Because this opportunity that's uncomfortable, that's triggering as fuck, I'm about to, if I so choose, into this and respond instead of making it about me. I'm about to break a pattern that's been happening for so long and move on to the next phase of my spiritual development, thus be a stronger, more empowered person, right? It's amazing. It
But
does
I have the
take some strength.
opportunity to do something different, right? At
Yeah.
every moment, I have the opportunity to
Choice.
make a different choice.
Choice. Yes. You have the choice. Like, that's the beauty. And I think I'm not, I've never read the Bible and I'd love to, just because. Why not? You know? Very spiritual person, just as you. But it goes back to like Adam and Eve too. Like, I believe there is a lot of truth to that whole thing. But like I said, I'm not attached, but it's a very interesting story, right? But just the choice between like free will or higher will, choosing the high road or choosing to make it about you. Life happens for me or life happens to me, right? The
Right?
victim or the responsible individual. And it's okay if we drop into victim every now and then. I do it. The difference is the awareness and the presence.
Right.
Awareness. Okay, what I'm feeling right now is I feel 15. What I feel right now is it's about me. What I feel right now is like I can't even focus on anyone else. And I don't like that. That's not my vision in life. My vision is not to make things about me. My vision is connection. My vision is other people. My vision is collaboration with beautiful people like Nicole, you know? So making it about me right now, okay, let me sit in my shit for 5 minutes if I really need to. Let me walk away and shift. But I will always shift. It may take me longer than I like, but I will always shift. And so that right there, just being okay feeling those feelings, that's what I realized I wasn't okay with, and what I noticed a lot. And I look out there because that's the world to me. I'm looking, but that I noticed a lot of people are still uncomfortable feeling like, oh, God, I did it again. I'm 35. I own a company. I'm married with 2 kids. Like, how can I feel this way still? It's like, because you fucking can. Okay, this is a tough experience. Like, I salute everyone on here for going through it and being willing to have the difficult conversations with themselves and with others. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's important to remember that life is forgiving, right? And so you can, you're constantly going to be given these opportunities to do something different, right? It keeps flowing, it keeps going, it never stops, right? That's what I had to really, yesterday when I was having that conversation with myself about self-forgiveness, I had to remind myself, like, I'm not there anymore. I'm here, and all I have is what, is happening now, and the opportunities that I have now to make a better choice. And that's
Yeah.
really all I have control of.
Yeah. I love it.
You
It's simple, right? We make it
know,
so complicated.
it has to be that simple though, because life is so complicated, because the emotions are so complicated that sometimes they do overtake. Sometimes I am blinded by my rage, by my insecurity, my shame, my guilt, whatever it is, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just, looking at it, learning from it, and then the next opportunity, because I will have another opportunity. The universe will give you the opportunity. It's usually sooner than you want it to be, too.
Yeah.
They're just like, here you
Yeah.
go. Let's give it another shot, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole point of this journey that we're on. It's we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Totally. Totally. The game is acceptance, man. Acceptance and just not being attached to
No.
not being attached to an age or what we do for a living or a title or where we think we should be or what we think we should feel, like, man, just humble. Be humble, ask for guidance of whatever it is you want to ask for. Maybe you don't believe anything higher. That's okay too. Get support from people that you do believe in.
Find what works for you.
Totally. But
The
find it.
connection that works for you, really.
Yeah. But find it. Like, don't give up.
Yeah.
There should be no reason to give up.
That's
There's
what's
so
really
many
cool about social media, right? Is that we've found such a big part of what I've gotten to do this year is connect with like-minded beings, right?
Yeah.
Through social media. It's like, oh, here's a, I just follow the hashtags that are of my liking, of my choice, and then, you find the people who are similar minded.
Hmm.
And
So
it
beautiful.
feels so beautiful. I mean, it's
Mhm.
so fulfilling to scroll on my timeline when I'm spending too much time doing that, and it actually being, a similar mindset, at least, that I'm looking at.
That's the cool thing. And then, like Too Short says, you got to get in where you fit in, okay? Because it's so true. It's so freaking true. Like,
Yeah,
I've always
yeah,
loved that. It's like when I was younger, and I know we're getting to a point that Instagram will knock us off here in about 10 minutes. So, but in general, it's like I know growing up I was trying to fit in everywhere. And it's like, who the fuck am I? You know?
right.
And life is too short. Like it's beautiful, but it's short. And like if you don't like the way you feel with somebody, cool. Like you ain't gotta change. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Just shift. Find someone new, you know? Just find someone new. And it took me a while. And like I said, things are relative, right? A while is relative. I'm 33, so I learned this stuff like within the last 4 years, and really truly embodied it within the last year.
Right.
Truly embodied it. Like truly, I'm like not tolerating that, loving that, not accepting that, welcoming that. Like truly based on like me, and not being attached to like, oh, but I want to be friends with that person because XYZ. It's like, who cares who they are, what they do? Like, not your thing, not your people, don't align. Maybe later, maybe they're vibrational rays, maybe not now. It's only our
Right.
job to really just listen to those feelings and be like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's easy. Yes, no, right? But it's not easy when we want to like, oh, but, and oh, maybe, and like blow off the intuitive nudge or like give the benefit of the doubt. What I love about animals is they don't fucking give benefit of doubt. It's yes or no. I was watching them yesterday when I was sitting in Little Italy in San Diego, and I'm like, look at these dogs. Like, it's mainly dogs. I'm like, yeah, they just yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Mhm.
Like, it ain't hard. It's just easy. I'm not saying we all have to be like dogs, because the cool thing is like we do have we do have our conscience, which is really cool. Um, yeah, but sometimes our um, ration isn't really backed by the best, healthiest experiences. So really being curious about your mindset and being okay that it is what it is, and knowing that anything is possible to change. And just to wrap it up, like, my mindset back in the day was very unhealthy and toxic. And the people that I chose to spend time with and the things that I thought I wanted was like, I'm total 180 today, total 180. It's possible. Anything's
Absolutely.
possible to change. It's fucking possible. It might take a little longer than you want, but like it's not as hard as it seems, and the journey is the juice. The journey is the juice. Like I was a box checker, box, 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 box. Got it. But why? Why isn't it happening? It's like because you're not present. I wasn't being present. I wasn't sitting
Hmm.
in my discomfort. I wasn't even like I wanted to spiritually bypass everything and just get to the end. It's like what end? You want to
Yeah.
die? Like come on. You don't
Yeah.
get to go to the end. You just get to experience, and within the experiences, people are supporting you, and just like feeling how to be in relationship with the support of you. Like for the first time I ever became vulnerable and really let myself in. It was like really let other people in. It was like, oh, this moment throughout this journey of learning to be who I want to be, this moment of connecting with this person and feeling what it feels like to be vulnerable and getting support, that part was important. So all those little parts are so important, right? I could go on forever, but
Right.
it's a whole other experience that we could, have later on. But thank you for gracing us with your presence again, Nicole.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
your vulnerability and your fire, and your power. I like to give people a word. Just it's what comes up often for me. I meet someone, I'm like, oof, and it's like a word just slaps me in my face with like who they are, and yours is fire. You're fire. You're fire. It's powerful. You're a
Yeah.
very powerful, powerful person. You're strong and you're determined. It's powerful, and you couldn't be anything else if you wanted to. So I acknowledge your power, and I acknowledge your strength, and I acknowledge your resilience. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
you. You're so welcome.
I appreciate you so much. So
Yeah,
much
girl.
fun.
Yeah. And to everyone that's on and stayed on and stuck with it, thank you so much. Like, we love you and we know that you got some things out of it. And there's no mistakes that you were attracted to this today. And whatever you heard, you heard. And if you didn't hear it all, that's okay too. It was just perfect. Whatever landed, landed. And you guys can take what you want and leave the rest. And just remember to be kind to yourselves. Remember to love yourselves. And remember that, like, you might fuck up again and it's okay. It's okay to be human and to come back and just make things better because everything can be cleaned up and everything is figure outable. So with that being said, Nicole, I love you.
I love you too. Thank
Have an
you.
amazing day and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.